Within me is not the one I was born with. Day 1. To outpace death is exhausting. It wasn't always so. In my early years I strode, sure-footed, confident. The first few stumbles failed to hinder my progress. When it came, the blow, it hit me hard, left me breathless. From some knocks we recover, from some we hide, and from some we take flight. I chose the latter. For many years I ran and ran and kept on running. I ran until my breath caught and my throat ached, until I outran my body, my heart, until I ran out of time. Here is where it ends. The final paragraph of my life story. To prolong my narrative, someone else must die, and soon. Details of how, or when, or where that will happen are not mine for the knowing, nor theirs. It's a waiting game. Who will succumb first? Them or me? Transplant, list, urgent, heart. As individual words, they're innocuous. Their power is collective. Context is everything. Urgent heart transplant list. Angela Hughes. So far, a full stop exists between my name and the rest of the words. But right now, a group of cardiologists and surgeons are meeting to decide whether the full stop should be removed to form a sentence. A life-saving sentence. My life. This is what happened when the running stopped. A hospital room with hermetically sealed windows. 8 paces across. 8 back. 8 forth. Back. Forth. Back. Forth. 1, 2, 3. Here's another word. Donor. D-O-N-O-R, donor. DNR, do not resuscitate, do no harm. Donor, giver, contributor, benefactor, subscriber, patron, conferrer, altruist, philanthropist. Saviour, the death of a stranger to bring me back to life. A person unknown to me, yet compatible in ways I had never before considered. Blood and tissue type, height and weight, antibody profiles. Perhaps we share interests. Our paths may even have crossed. If I survive the transplant, my family and friends will celebrate. Theirs will grieve. For our joy, their sorrow. I'll grow older. My donor will not. Torment is this. My future beats in someone else's chest. I get it. In abstract, I understand. I'm not responsible for their death. There is no trade-off, no Faustian pact, no life for a life, theirs for mine. The tough part is the reconciliation of my emotional response with hard fact. My potential donor is walking their dog, eating dinner, making love, playing with their children, laughing with friends, living, breathing, until they're not. The advantage they have is that they don't see it coming, the end. Only I mark time. Knowledge is not always power.
You told me you probably had 5 years on that journey just after we met. That journey when I was beginning to realise I was in love with you. I didn't someone in my head. 5 years with you, spiral into a painful end. Or a lifetime without you, empty of grief or love. I already had no choice. Yet here we are, short-changed in a hospital ward. You becoming smaller as the equipment around you gathers and multiplies. We're up on the 3rd floor with a view of the river. But we're falling. From you'll be out in a couple of days to there'll be a way they can fix this. To seeing the terror brim in your eyes as you mouth the word transplant. Even that terrible lifeline was pulled out of reach just as we grasped for it. And amid our diversions and laughter and silly whiteboard sketches and confident visions of campervan futures and an old age we may never share, we both knew the time had come to say goodbye. You asked if it would be okay. Of course not, I said.
Day 6. As a child, on a family holiday in the north of Scotland, I visited the bay that inspired Gavin Maxwell to write his book about otters. I don't really remember much about the place, except it was secluded, and we had a dinghy, though now, in hindsight, I find that hard to fathom, since to my knowledge we've never owned one. Along with the friend I was allowed to bring on holiday as long as I behaved myself, I dragged the dinghy out into shallow water, and we cast ourselves adrift. My younger sister and brother were on the beach, building kingdoms of sand, decorated with Alhambra mosaics of shells and starfish. In our floating cocoon, with our faces wide open to the sun, and our bodies navigating seaward, the sound when it reached us was incongruous, high-pitched, staccato. It skimmed past our ears and slammed into the waves, shouting, screaming, no words. A swivel of my head revealed my sister running through the waves, much, much further away than when we had last seen her. And ahead there was sea. Water upon water until it collided with the sky. At first I felt nothing. Not numbness, a vacuum. And then fear, scrambling up the back of my legs and neck, scraping at my skin, ears crammed with the sound trapped inside conch shells, and a dead weight dragging my insides down. Down through murk and sunless shadow to the bottom of the sea. That's how I feel today. Except this time there's no dinghy, and the waves are 100 feet high.
Take someone with you, I'd be the one to choose. I'm waiting here. I need more time. One more time, just one more time.
Day 12. An Arctic chill forms a sheet of ice across the small of my back, reminding me of my lonely sleeping arrangements. I woke in damp sheets, shivering, my head aching from the tension created by my clenched jaw, limbs tangled in the residue of night sweats, hair clinging to the back of my neck. It's a far cry from my nights at home with Paul, collapsed into each other, his arm draped over my waist, wisps of my hair tracking the rise and fall of his breath. Here I'm cold and alone. There I am safe, swaddled in his skin. How we were, how we loved, how I remember us. I remember the first time we never thought I could again. But the first time I bit back the urge to cry or whisper thank you. Remember us.
Remember us.
Remember us. Day 17. It's 6 a.m. on Christmas morning and Paul is my first call. About 11 I say, nothing further, not even hello. After all the phone calls to my family, after the scrubbing and showering and bloodletting and paper pants, after the consent form with the word mortality in capital letters, after the handshake and the transplant fellow and the hugs from the nurses and the surgeon's reassuring squeeze of my shoulder, after the procession through the empty corridors in my hospital bed, after all of that, we pause outside the theatre doors. This is where we lose Paul. The remainder of my journey is mine alone. The transplant coordinator retreats, and the two nurses accompanying me turn away. Paul hunches over me, brushes my lips with his, and whispers in my ear. No goodbyes, we agreed. No tears. I chew my bottom lip. He kisses me again on my forehead and presses his thumb hard into the back of my hand.
Are we waiting?
He straightens up. His gaze never leaves my face. For several seconds our eyes remain fixed on each other in silence. Paul blinks, moves past the theatre assistant, and fades from my line of vision.
Take care of her.
His voice disappears. The air stills, and I strain to hear his footsteps as he walks away. They begin to wheel me towards the theatre doors. I know Paul watches me until I'm out of sight. The heart that beats within me is not the one I was born with. The heart that beats within me is not the one I was born with.